Good evening and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. Well, tonight, a change of pace from our usual format. Now, rather than debating the news of the day, we instead are going to introduce you to organizations and people from our region and beyond that have identified and tried to tackle issues that impact those in our communities who are too often either marginalized or even forgotten. Now, whether it be the advocates for victims of domestic abuse, those who shine a light on the growing crisis of homeless teens, and the authors of a stunning report showing how many of our working neighbors and their families are one lost job, an illness, a single slip from finding them and their families in poverty. Now, you'll meet all those folks and an amazing man who's chosen to use his reporter's voice to share his honest, painful descent here into early Alzheimer's. Now, first, though, we begin with a look at a nonprofit organization that is dedicated to assisting domestic violence survivors and their families. Organizers at Hope Store say that the holidays can be an especially difficult time for those who have suffered through such trauma. Now, we've worked as a broadcaster with Hope Store, and I cannot say enough about this organization and the important work that they do every single day. Counselor Anna Rubio and Hope Store survivor Victoria, they spoke out to me about the organization and their experiences. You know, I'm always surprised, less so after each interaction, not only with your group but other groups like this, at the prevalence of this for all ages, all socioeconomic backgrounds, doesn't matter what nationality, faith, whatever it is. The amount of women that are victims of domestic violence, it is just stunning. And I was interested to learn it actually goes up in the holiday season, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. No, it does. And sometimes for some individuals, they try to put a show for their families and their friends to make sure there's some type of normalcy for the holidays. But there is, again, through the financial abuse of the burden of getting the gifts, the control within that relationship becomes a burden within that family.
Victoria, you're courageous enough, and I've always been impressed by some of the women I've met through Hope Store to share their stories so that others who either are going through some of the same situations find it both relatable and other people learn about where they can go, because it doesn't have to be this way. But give people a snapshot into your life, because as I understand it, you were involved in a relationship, there were signs of violence, ended up marrying this person, and then it quickly it escalated for there, and you were actually in fear, not just for yourself, but for your child as well.
That's right. A lot of times victims will ignore the red flags that come up, and the batterers will apologize after the violence has happened. They'll apologize. They'll say, I know I'm not supposed to do this. I'm sorry. Don't leave. I won't ever do it again. But that's what's called the honeymoon period in the cycle of violence. After the violence has erupted, there's sort of an ease that happens, a space of time where there's no tension, you know, after the violence has taken place. So, you know, as a victim, we buy into that. Oh, okay, it won't happen again. Okay, good. And any other kind of red flags we kind of ignore, but then the violence happens again. And as a matter of fact, over time, it often escalates. And personally, I got to a point where I realized it was never going to stop. It was going to keep getting worse, and I was afraid that I would end up in the hospital or end up dead. I didn't want our child to grow up in a household where she heard her mother screaming, saw the violence against her mom, saw her father being so scary, and I also didn't want to end up dead and leave her alone.
And I'm curious, do you find that when people finally do stay away, it's because they've broken that emotional connection with the abuser? Or, I mean, I've heard from some people say they leave and they realize there's nowhere to go. They're afraid wherever they go that the guy's going to find them, so they're trying to go somewhere else. But a lot of times the money's in his name, the vehicle's in his name, they're not employed, they have no way to support their family here, so they go back out of necessity, not out of want. Is it more on the economic, or is it more on the emotional? That's that hook that keeps so many women going back up to 7 times before they're finally willing to leave.
I think it's probably a combination of both. I think it's the fact that they've been so much isolated from their family and friends that they don't have that support. They try to put that show again that everything's okay. They don't have any like financial help because everything's been under the abuser's name. These victims have been controlled and manipulated in every possible way. That when they do have that way to go out, they feel hopeless that where am I going to go? Who can I rely on? He knows every friend, he knows every family member, he knows where they can be found. And that's a little scary. But luckily, Hope Store has an actual 24-hour shelter that fortunately these families have somewhere to go where we can help them make that step again to have supportive, to help their family supportively, financially. They can make that next step to get a job because they don't know that there is that help out there.
Yeah, and we're putting up that toll-free number here, as well as the website where people can explore, better ways for them. But Victoria, somebody has gone through the entire process that some of these women are just embarking on right now. It's just not the decision about leaving and then staying away, but all the legal questions that are attached to this, all the practical questions about it. What did you wish you knew then that you now know?
Well, because Hope Store supplied all the resources that I needed. They supplied all the practical stuff that I needed: food, shelter, clothing, a safe place to live, emotional recovery, emotional stability, legal support. I can't say that there was something that I didn't get that I needed back then.
And legal support, I assume that's orders of protection, custody, etc., right?
Right.
Tell people, Anna, how they can help at home, and if thankfully they're not in a situation where they're going to need to reach out to the hotline and to the resources that Hope Store has to offer, but yet they want to be part of the solution, how can somebody at home help?
We have a website, which is www.hopestoreny.org. And again, we have also Tammy, which is our office manager. She can be reached at 914-747-0828, extension 100. And we are looking for donations, anything as far as something from food, perishable food, non-perishable foods, gift cards for these families to be able to provide to their children. Also, we take donations for our programs, and we have also a donation site within our website, which you can see our programs that we look to for communities and companies to donate as well.
And finally, Victoria, for somebody watching at home who says, you know what they're talking about is kind of my life, but they're still nervous to pick up the phone or to reach out to a group like Hope Store, help convince them that that's the right move, that they shouldn't have to endure what they're dealing with right now.
You're not going to call the hotline. They're not going to say, oh, well, you have to do this, you have to do that. They're going to encourage you to make the decision for yourself, going to give you all the information that you need to make an informed decision about your next move. And what's most important is the victim's safety and their children.
Ladies, thank you very much for a few minutes. I really appreciate it. And coming up next, everyone, we will be speaking with United Way CEO Kim Morgan about the economic pressures facing the middle class in Connecticut. We'll be right back with that and much more.